6 Common Medicinal Herbs and How to Save Their Seed, an online video tutorial by Jerica Holden for seed savers, herbalists, home gardeners, and anyone else interested in saving seeds. The objectives of today's lesson is to identify at least 2 reasons why seed saving is important, recognize and name at least 1 medicinal herb discussed in the lesson, explain at least 1 traditional use for an herb discussed in the lesson, and to choose an appropriate storage method and location for your seeds. The herbs we will review in this video are basil, calendula, chamomile, echinacea, feverfew, and mullein. Please note, the information presented in this video is intended for educational purposes and is not to be used as a recommendation for treatment or cure to any physical or mental ailment. The author recommends consulting your healthcare practitioner before incorporating medicinal herbs into your healthcare routine. Why save seeds? Seed saving can enhance genetic diversity, establish and maintain food security, preserve culture, and help save money. Can you think of any other reasons to save seeds? If so, please leave a comment or send us a message. The materials you'll need for your adventure today are hand pruners, a small jar or airtight container to keep your seeds in. I like to use these jam jars because I can write on the lids and then put the date that I harvested the seeds. Some kind of a container to collect the seeds in initially, and a paper towel or a paper plate or some other kind of surface where you can keep the seeds while they're drying for a couple of weeks to ensure that they're completely dry before you put them into storage. I invite you to look in your cupboards, in your pantry, and just take advantage of the things that you already have on hand. The first herb that we'll be talking about today is basil. It's traditionally used for indigestion, nausea, and headaches. This is what it looks like when it's in flower. Basil does have several different varieties, and so sometimes the blossoms are different colors. This is what it looks like when it's gone to seed. As you can see, the stalks are all dried out. And so I'm just going to be taking my hand pruners and just snipping that off there, and then I'll just put it in my collection container to save for later. To separate the seeds from the flower, you can just take the little stalk and rub it between your fingers, and you can see the little black seeds just come right out. The next herb on our list is calendula. It's traditionally used for various skin problems such as eczema, rashes, bruises, etc., sore throats, and digestive ulcers. This is what the dried flower looks like, and it just dries out really well on the stalk, and you can just snip those heads right off, or you can sometimes even just pull them off with your hand, but they're really easy to separate. I just kind of pull them apart with my fingers. You can crush it in your hand, but the seeds look like tiny little caterpillars or worms. Next, we'll talk about chamomile. The German variety is traditionally used for fever, insomnia, and muscle cramps. The Roman variety is traditionally used for irritable bowel syndrome, gastritis, and pain. When the flower dries out on the stalk and goes to seed, usually the petals fall off, and what you're left with is this tiny little ball here. And so they're really easy to just pull off with your finger. And I'll do that and then just put it in my collection container. To separate the seeds, you can just take the little ball and then just crush it in your fingers. As you crush it, I invite you to smell it. It smells so good, like apples. The seeds are really, really tiny. You can kind of see like those tiny black speckles in there. Next, we'll talk about echinacea. It's traditionally used as an immune stimulant, an antiviral, especially for colds and flus, and as a topical antiseptic. When harvesting the dry flower heads, I would recommend wearing gloves if you have sensitive fingers, and also using hand pruners because the flower heads are really spiky and can sometimes be painful. Here you can see some of the seeds have already kind of popped out, and echinacea is one of those plants that does self-seed very readily. To extract the seeds from the flower head, usually I pull them apart, but I'm not wearing gloves, and so I decided to just like shake it, and you can see the seeds just kind of fall out. Throughout your seed saving adventure today, I want to also invite you to pay attention to your senses, the sight, smell, and like feel of all the textures. Feverfew. It's traditionally used for arthritis, migraine headaches, and as an appetite stimulant. I would also like to note that there are similarities, as you can see, between feverfew and chamomile, but they do have different types of foliage. So just make sure that if you're harvesting seeds or even fresh herbs from plants, that you can positively identify them. When the seeds are ready to be harvested, the petals will fall off of the flower head and the flower head will dry up. And they're really easy to harvest. You can just pluck them off. These ones aren't quite ready to harvest, but I'm going to pull them off and bring them home anyway and let them dry out there. To extract the seeds, you can just pull one of the little heads off and rub it between your fingers. The seeds do look a little bit different than chamomile, but they are very, very tiny, and you can see like little black dots in there. Last, we'll talk about mullein. This is what it looks like growing in the wild. It grows really tall, and it will get these really beautiful stalks of yellow flowers on top. It's traditionally used for cough, middle ear inflammation, and asthma. I invite you to feel the leaves because they're very fuzzy. When the seeds are ready to be harvested, those tall yellow stalks on top will dry out like this, and I would recommend getting some hand pruners to trim them off, because even though the seeds may be ready to harvest, the stalk may not be entirely dry in order for you to snap it. After I've harvested the stalks, I let them dry for a little while on like a paper towel or a paper plate, usually for about 2 to 3 weeks until they're completely dry. Then I'll put them in some kind of a container or a bag and shake it really vigorously to release the seeds from the stalk. As you can see, these seeds are incredibly tiny, and there are thousands and thousands of them. When your harvest adventures come to a close and you have extracted all of the seeds and laid them out and dried them completely, the most important thing that you can do to preserve your harvest is to ensure you have proper storage. This will look like an airtight container in a cool and dry location, and you want to make sure that you properly label your seeds with the name, date, and variety. I also like to label where I collected the seeds from so that I know if they were collected in the wild or if I collected them from my home garden, so that I know what kind of climate they grew in and what they were adapted to. What you're seeing here now is a system that I set up for seed collection that just kind of consolidated everything for me. I have these little tiny containers that I'm able to put my seeds in, and I put a label around the outside so I know all the growing requirements for that particular seed, when I saved the seed, and I generally write where I got the seed from or where I saved it from. And then I put these little tiny desiccant packets in there to help absorb moisture. Now, your seed saving system doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can use a variety of containers, as you see here. In this particular picture, it looks like they've used like old spice containers, some old jars. You can use pickle jars. You can use, old condiment containers. In this one, like they've used an old shoe box and like transformed that. This person has just used some plastic containers to organize their seeds in a simple way. And this is another system of mine that I used in a seed library that I had set up out in front of my house, just to kind of organize the seeds that way so that they're easy to locate. And lastly, the most important things to remember about saving seeds are accurate identification of the plant before harvesting. Ensure the plants you're harvesting from are non-GMO to avoid patent infringement issues. And also make sure the seeds are completely clean and dry before storage so that they don't go moldy. And you want to store them in a proper container in a dry and cool place. But the absolute most important thing about seed saving is to have fun. I want to hear from you. What was your favorite thing you learned from this tutorial? What kinds of seeds do you like saving? Do you have or have you seen an awesome seed storage system? Are there any tutorials you'd like to see from me in the future? Please comment and or send me a message. Happy seed saving!